Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of Season 2 of The Retail Tales, a podcast where we exclusively discuss all things AI across the retail value chain. I'm Saurabh, and I'm your host for this podcast. Let me take you into a moment that I've seen repeat itself like a glitch in the matrix. Picture this: a sleek boardroom, polished concrete floors, kombucha on tap, and about 8 people around the table trying to decode the AI strategy. It's usually a mix, someone from marketing, someone from supply chain, obviously a technology executive, a product manager who's pretending not to regret saying yes to this meeting, and of course the CFO. There could be a couple of other leaders as well, but the topic of the day: generative AI. Someone's given a demo, say a chatbot that wrote a product description, or a model that generated new marketing copy. Everyone nods, everyone agrees, and then the CFO leans in with the question. It's always some variation of, okay, but what's the ROI? How much labor can we take out? Now, I get it. I'm not here to pick on CFOs. I love a good margin model as much as the next person. But that question, that specific question, that instinct to ask how many heads AI can replace is quietly killing the potential of this entire wave of technology in retail. It's like buying an iPhone and asking how many calculators, or for that matter, how many flashlights you can throw away. Technically, it's true, but you've missed the point, And this isn't just a mindset issue. It has downstream effects. When we define the value of AI narrowly, purely through the lens of labor productivity, we shape everything around it that way. The pilots we choose, the metrics we track, the teams we fund, the time horizon we accept. So in today's episode, let's reset. Let's talk about the real value of AI, real value from AI. Let's zoom way out and then zoom in on how retail leaders should actually be thinking about the value of AI and generative AI capabilities. Not just to sound smart in meetings, but actually extract and realize that value in the real world. Because generative AI is not a line item cost reducer. It's a business capability expander, a strategic lever. And if you're not seeing that yet, it's probably because you're asking it to prove its worth using 2010 math for a 2025 reality. Let me start with a quick story, and this time it's a true one from a big box retailer we worked with last year. Their marketing team had a massive content problem. Every product page required 6 different variations of copy: SEO optimized, mobile friendly, in-app blurbs, and a few others. They were outsourcing this work to a content agency that billed them by the hour and moved at the speed of molasses. So they did the obvious thing. They brought in generative AI model to write some of the content. Everyone cheered. The agency panicked. The internal team was excited, and the CFO was even more excited. Great, he said in a meeting, we can finally eliminate the agency. That's a few $1,000,000 saved right there. And sure, they saved some money. But what happened next is where the real value emerged. And it had nothing at all to do with cutting costs. The merchandising team, now freed from the copy bottleneck, started experimenting. They began running localized A/B tests with copy variants by region. They tested emotional headlines versus functional ones. They tried out bundles that were only relevant in certain zip codes. And because generative AI could generate that copy in minutes instead of weeks, they moved from quarterly refresh cycles to bi-weekly ones. Sales went up. But more importantly, the learning velocity exploded. They suddenly knew what kinds of messages worked best by customer segment, not just guesses, but data-backed insights. That led to smarter creative, better promotions, and a sharper understanding of what made their brand connect. That, my friends, is value. And none of it showed up in the original business case, you know, because the business case was built around saving time and not growing relevance. Now, here's the tricky part. Old school ROI math doesn't like this kind of value. Executives love clean numbers. How much did we spend? How much did we save? That's tidy. That's spreadsheetable. But generative AI's value doesn't always show up as cleanly as that in a spreadsheet. At least not at first. A personalized email that converts 14% better doesn't scream AI magic. It screams better marketing. A shelf planner who uses generative AI summary to reorder assortments based on, hyperlocal trends isn't waving a flag saying, look, labor savings. They're just doing their job better, faster, and smarter. And if your CFO is only counting heads, you'll miss all of it. Let me say this as clearly as I can. If your ROI model only includes labor hours saved, your AI programming is underperforming. Even if the tech works, even if your pilots pass. Because the real value isn't in replacing people, it's in replacing friction and replacing inertia and replacing the old pace of business with something faster, smarter, and much more responsive. Let me give you another example. A mid-sized beauty retailer wanted to explore generative AI for product recommendations. Their existing system was quite rule-based. You buy shampoo, we suggest conditioner. Basic, traditional, boring. They introduced a generative AI model that analyzed customer reviews, customer sentiments, and usage patterns to recommend not just adjacent products, but complementary routines. The model picked up on signals like, this worked well on my curls in dry weather, and matched it with products that customers with similar feedback liked. This wasn't just upsell, it was relevance. They ran it as a test. Customers clicked more, bought more, and came back more. But when they went to write up the business case, the question came back again. What's the cost takeout? There wasn't any. Nobody got replaced, but the customer lifetime value increased, average basket size ticked up, returns went down, fewer products being sent back with the reason this wasn't right for me. So the smart folks on the team reframed the story. They didn't say, look at the cost savings. They said, look at the relationship value. That's not fluff. That's compounding growth. So how do you build this kind of value? How do you realize it? Not just spot it once in a lucky pilot, but embed it into how your organization operates. First, you've got to start with the right question. Not where can we use AI, but where in our business does speed matter? Where does personalization matter? Where does decision quality matter? Where are we stuck because our teams don't have the time, tools, or capacity to move faster? And where are the points of real friction in the business? Then you bring in AI. Because when you start from the value friction, not the tech, you start unlocking outcomes that actually matter. I've seen retailers do this with promo planning. Traditionally, a promo takes weeks of planning, approvals, pricing coordination, signage creation, and then campaign development. By the time it hits the shelf, the customers have already moved on and the trend has passed. But when a generative AI system helps generate campaign variants, localized offers, email copies, signage language, and a tailored internal launch brief, by the way, all of this in 36 hours, you don't just save time, you win the race. That's strategic speed. And in retail, as you all know it, speed is often the most underpriced value driver. The second piece of the puzzle is how you organize for this kind of value. Because here's the truth. AI value doesn't live in data science. It lives in the intersection between product, marketing, operations, and customer experience. It shows up where people talk to customers, move inventory, plan assortments, or make decision choices. That means the best AI teams aren't tech only. They are cross-functional pods. They are business-led and not model-led. They include the people who know the workflows, the friction, the daily realities. And they include the retail AI geeks like me who can say, hey, AI could help here. If AI lives in a lab, or worse, in a single team, it stays small. It stays hypothetical. It becomes another cool pilot that gets written up in innovation newsletter and then never scales. But when AI becomes part of how teams solve problems, you start seeing results. Um, I was with a retailer recently who cracked this by accident. They put a product manager, a merchant, a creative, and a data scientist on this 6-week sprint to explore Gen AI use cases for back to school season. They came up with 3 small things: faster campaign copy testing, hyper personalized landing pages, and dynamic bundle suggestions based on card patterns. Nothing individually mind blowing, but together, conversion lifted, basket sizes grew, and their merch team now wants Gen AI in the loop because they see it as a superpower, not as a surveillance tool. That's culture shift. And culture shift is a value driver too. There's one more piece that I want to talk about today, and it's this: AI is a mirror. It reflects back the strengths and the gaps of your business model. If your brand has a strong sense of identity, Gen AI helps you express it in more places. If you have deep customer understanding, AI helps you act on it faster. If you have a fast supply chain, AI helps you match it to the right signals. But if you're disorganized, AI will give you faster chaos. If your teams are siloed, then AI will optimize for the silos. If your data is scattered, the outputs will be average. It doesn't fix your mess, it scales it. And that's why this work matters so much. Because the way you define value is the way your organization will build. And if you define AI's value narrowly, you'll miss the moments that actually move the business forward. So instead of asking, where can I save money? Ask, where can I create momentum? Instead of tracking labor reductions, track how many ideas saw the light of day, how much faster your teams can learn, how much better your decisions get. Because when you think like that, you start building an AI program that actually delivers. One that doesn't just pilot, it performs. One that doesn't just look good in a slide deck, it scales in the real world. And in this moment, in this economy, in this competitive landscape, in this customer reality, that kind of value isn't optional. It's everything. Let me tell you about another retailer I worked with recently. It's a global fashion brand with operations across North America, Europe, and a fast-growing presence in Asia. They were stuck. They weren't failing, just stuck. Their marketing team was spending weeks, literally weeks, tweaking product descriptions and campaign assets for regional markets. Translations, rewrites, legal reviews, cultural rewrites, and more legal reviews. Everything took too long. Campaigns launched late, teams were burned out, and then they brought in generative AI to help with localization. Great. Sped things up. But here's where it got even more interesting. They didn't just use AI to translate faster, they trained it on local campaign tone and performance. Suddenly, AI wasn't just turning English into French. It was learning that in Paris, luxury sells, but in Lyon, value does. It adjusted voice. It leaned into regional pride. It picked up local slang. And it did this for every market. The result? Not only were campaigns hitting shelves faster, but click-through rates went up. Engagement rates went up. And the teams finally had the time to experiment. Nobody got laid off, nobody was optimized, but the business got sharper, the teams got faster, the content got better. That's value. And here's the part that I love the most. They didn't try to build some massive, perfect system first. They started scrappy. A pilot in 3 regions, then 6, and then they scaled. Because they weren't chasing savings, they were chasing relevance. Now, let's also talk about a different kind of value, decision quality. We don't always talk about this enough. Retail, and I'm sure you all agree to it, is full of decisions. Which products to promote, which price to set, how much to order, what to mark down, which emails to send, what copy to run, when to push the next drop. And if you're being honest, a lot of these decisions are based on gut feel, habit, or, last year's playbook. AI, particularly the pairing of generative AI with predictive models, doesn't replace decision makers. It augments them. I worked with a home goods retailer where merchandising team was constantly drowning in data, but starving for insight. Weekly performance reviews turned into data swamp adventures. Everyone had different numbers. No one agreed on what mattered. So we gave the merch leads a generative AI powered tool that generated Monday brief. A simple Monday brief. Literally, 1 page every Monday morning. Top performers, underperformers, exceptions, inventory anomalies, promo lifts, all summarized in natural language. No filters, no pivots, no yelling about Excel formatting. You'd think the big win was saving time, but the bigger win, they were actually making better decisions. They were seeing things earlier, catching trends faster, asking smarter questions in Monday meetings, and they finally had the time to think. No one cut headcount, but they cut through the noise. That's value. Now, let me pause here and say this. It's not wrong to care about productivity. That's part of the value stack. But when it's the only lens we use, we miss the higher order effects, the compounding returns, the brand lift, the team capacity expansion, the learning loops. And frankly, we kill momentum. I've seen great generative AI pilots die on the vine because the team couldn't show a clear cost out number. Meanwhile, the pilot worked, adoption was high, feedback was great, but because the finance spreadsheet didn't have a neat ROI box labeled better customer experience, the funding dried up. So we need a new language, a new framework of thinking about value in AI. We need to stop asking, what can we cut? And start asking, what could we create? And that starts with the way we build roadmaps. Speaking of, let's quickly talk about roadmaps for a second, because this is where things go sideways, and things go sideways fast. A lot of executives say, give me an AI roadmap. What they really mean is, show me where we'll use AI, when, and what the benefit is going to be. What they get is usually one of the two things. Either a very technical architectural plan with models, data pipelines, cloud partners, service integrators, and whatnot. Or a grocery list of use cases, pun not intended, filled with use cases like product copy generation, price optimization, visual search, chatbots. But here's the problem. A list of use cases is not a strategy. It's not a roadmap. It's just a to-do list. And it tells you nothing about where value will actually come from. A good AI roadmap doesn't start with use cases. It starts with value pools. Where in your business does speed matter most? Where do decisions drive the most margin? Where are your biggest customer pain points? Where do your teams spend hours that don't result in better outcomes? Start there. If your biggest margin drain is promo over discounting, don't start with generative AI content generation. Start with AI-driven promo planning. And then use generative AI to help category managers understand and action those insights. If your customers bounce because search sucks, start there. Let AI make search more contextual, dynamic, and smart. Then use generative AI to explain results in human language. See, that's the pattern I'm talking about. Start with value, then use AI as a force multiplier. Now, I also want to address something that's quietly sabotages a lot of AI programs, and that is measurement. If you measure AI with the wrong ruler, you'll get the wrong answer. Too many retailers measure generative AI like it's a glorified intern. You know, how many hours did it save? How many manual tasks did it do? But the real impact shows up in places that don't always get captured by a stopwatch. Things like time to insight, campaign speed to launch, creative variant testing velocity, revenue per personalized offer, manager decision cycle time, customer lifetime value per segment. Those are the kind of things that really shows impact. One retailer I know rolled out a generative AI-powered brief generator for store managers. It wasn't sexy at all. But suddenly, every store manager had a daily digest of what mattered. Sales trends, inventory risks, scheduling flags, all in plain English. And they didn't save headcount, but the shrink dropped, sales lifted, turnover improved. Why? Because the quality of local decisions got better. Managers felt much more equipped, engaged, informed. That's value. And if you only measured labor savings, you'd have missed it completely. Let's go even further. What about business model innovation? I've seen brands experiment with generative AI co-creation, letting customers help design limited edition products or test virtual try-ons powered by AI-generated outfit visuals, or explore conversational shopping assistants that don't just recommend products but act as a stylist, a chef, or a skincare consultant. That's not about saving money. That's about new revenue. That's about new experiences, new levels of engagement. The other day, I was reading about this direct-to-consumer brand that built a Gen AI gift concierge for holiday season. Customers answered a few questions, actually 5 questions. The AI recommended gifts, explained the logic, and even recommended a custom-written message. Conversion rates soared, not because of a faster backend, but because of delight. You can't spreadsheet delight, can you? But you can bank the results. So, where does all of this leave us? If I had to wrap up in one line, I'd say this. AI is not here to do what you already do, just cheaper. It's here to help you do what you could not do before, better. And if you only focus on headcount, you'll miss the head start. You'll miss the chance to become the retailer that moves faster. The one whose creatives test 5 ideas instead of 2. The one whose customers feel seen. The one whose merch leads make better calls at 9:15 on a Monday morning. That's the value. So next time someone asks you what the ROI of AI is, don't start with costs saved. Start with speed gained, relevance delivered, insight uncovered, delight unlocked, growth accelerated. Because that, my friends, and not labor savings, is the story that'll get you funded. And frankly, that's the story that gets people excited to build again. And on that note, it's a wrap on this episode. Thanks for listening. Here's me, Saurabh, signing off. If you like the content, don't forget to follow this show to keep learning a thing or two about retail AI. You can follow us on LinkedIn and subscribe to this show on Spotify or Apple. Join me in the next episode of The Retail Tales, a show which is exclusively focused on exploring all things AI across the retail value chain. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay curious.